Germany and the United Kingdom are signing a historic military pact today, which means that both countries are guaranteed to come to each other's defense in the event of an attack or a major war. In fact, the largest European countries are strengthening their military ties amid ongoing Russian aggression and doubts about the willingness of Donald Trump's administration to engage in addressing European security issues. But that's not all, not by a long shot, because earlier, France and the United Kingdom agreed to coordinate their nuclear weapons policy and jointly produce missile weaponry. Essentially, this means that France and Britain, the only countries in the European Union, let's include Britain here as well, who possess nuclear weapons, are ready to create such a nuclear umbrella over all of Europe. This essentially means that the largest countries in Europe are now forming a military coalition to go to war with the Russians if they decide to attack Europe. At the same time, today the deranged Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Sergei Shoigu, recalled history, specifically and personally Suvorov, and threatened Europe with total military defeat. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is July 17th. We'll get to everything in order, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So Germany and the United Kingdom are quietly signing a historic military agreement today. After France and the United Kingdom agreed to coordinate nuclear deterrence policy and the production of new types of weapons, Germany also decided to expand its cooperation with London in the defense sector. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer are signing an agreement in London today, which includes a commitment to provide each other with military assistance in the event of an armed attack on either country. In other words, both countries are entering into a military pact to protect their allies. If Russia commits an act of aggression against one of these countries, the other is obligated to come to its defense. But, as they assure in Berlin, the mutual defense agreement is a response both to Russia's actions and to the growing concern among European allies about the United States' commitment to the NATO principle of collective defense. They fear that Trump is unstable and that sooner or later he might decide that if a war breaks out in Europe, he'll say, "That's your problem, we're not getting involved there." And since Trump decided not to help Ukraine by selling NATO weapons, and NATO is now transferring these weapons directly to Ukraine, this shows that Trump really wants to distance himself from this war. And here's an interesting point. In Germany, they say that such a pact is not a replacement for NATO's principle of mutual defense. It's just another safeguard in case NATO's mechanisms fail. But for Germany, the issue of defense is especially important since the United Kingdom, along with France, is one of the two nuclear powers in Europe. That is, these two countries, France and Britain, have their own nuclear weapons. Germany is currently under the United States nuclear umbrella, but it's time for Europe to start thinking about creating its own nuclear umbrella. And this is an official statement from Jens Spahn. He is the leader of the largest parliamentary group in the German Bundestag, which consists of Merz's party, the Christian Democratic Union, and its permanent partner, the Bavarian Christian Social Union Party. As they always say, Christian Democratic Union and Christian Social Union. And so Spahn stated that in order to ensure effective deterrence of Russia and protect against the threats it has begun to pose, Europe must create its own nuclear umbrella over the continent. Next, I'll quote him. Russian aggression is a completely new threat. Europe must become capable of deterrence. Right now, American nuclear bombs are stationed in Germany, but in the long run, that won't be enough. I know what defensive reflexes are immediately triggered in this situation. But yes, we should have a discussion about an independent European nuclear umbrella, and that will only work if Germany takes a leadership role. If you can't provide nuclear deterrence, you'll become a pawn in world politics. And importantly, the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz himself has previously stated that Europe needs to stop relying on the United States and take care of its own defense. Germany needs to create the strongest army in Europe, says Merz. Moreover, back in February, Friedrich Merz talked about the possibility of creating a European nuclear shield. We need to discuss with the British and the French, the two European nuclear powers, whether they can share nuclear weapons with us or at least provide security with their help. We need to talk about German or European participation in the nuclear arsenal of France and the United Kingdom, and possibly also about our own participation with other European states. It will cost a lot of money, but whoever wants protection must finance it. And now in Germany, people are already thinking this way. And then there's a quote from Spahn: France will almost certainly not allow us to touch its red button. But there are a few ideas, even if some of them might initially seem theoretical. For example, responsibility could be distributed among the member states of the nuclear union at random. Then even a potential adversary would remain unaware. Well, here Spahn is hinting that, say, the so-called red button could move between European capitals and no one would know whose hands it's in today. Well, obviously not in all the capitals. I think it's unlikely that anyone, would allow that button to be placed in Slovakia or Hungary. And so, according to sources, nuclear weapons are not directly mentioned in the new treaty between Germany and Britain. But Keir Starmer and Friedrich Merz will agree on the delivery of a new long-range missile system over the next decade. This is stated publicly in the announcement, and the range of its missiles will be more than 2,000 kilometers. And it will support the defense sector of the United Kingdom and Europe through significant industrial investments. The countries will also promote the export of jointly produced military equipment. This could include Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets, military transport aircraft, and armored vehicles. But that's not even the most important thing here. The thing is, a week ago, the United Kingdom and France agreed to strengthen their cooperation in the field of nuclear deterrence and are ready to coordinate any response measures to nuclear security threats throughout Europe. In addition, as part of the partnership they called the Industrial Entente, they will develop and produce new types of weapons, including a new model of missiles that is currently being supplied to Ukraine. And now, two members of the United Nations Security Council, France and Britain, both possessing nuclear weapons, have signed a declaration which for the first time states that, quote, "The respective deterrent forces of both countries are independent but can be coordinated, and there is no such emergency threat to Europe that would not trigger a response from both countries. Any adversary threatening our shared vital interests may face the power of the nuclear forces of the United Kingdom or France." And so, in London, it was stated that cooperation with the European nuclear powers, the United Kingdom and France, which can provide a nuclear umbrella over all of Europe, is now considered one of the main options for ensuring the security of the old world. Other measures are also provided within the framework of the Industrial Entente Partnership, including the development of next-generation air-to-air missiles, electronic warfare weapons, and the use of artificial intelligence to increase the lethality of missile and drone strikes. And now Germany fits absolutely naturally into this whole picture, as today it is signing a pact with the British. Moreover, according to French intelligence, Russia may still try to start a war against Europe in the next 3 to 5 years. And today, Olenyevod spoke about this, or rather, the Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Sergei Shoigu, stated that European countries increasing their defense budgets because of the Russian threat will inevitably suffer defeat if they go to war with Russia. Well, and next they'll quote Shoigu. Don't laugh right away, but listen. I would like to recall the words of the great Russian commander Suvorov. A Russian is distinguished by faith, loyalty, and reason. All of Europe will move against Russia in vain. There it will find Leonidas, Thermopylae, and its own grave. At the same time, Shoigu emphasized that Moscow is open to an equal dialogue with European capitals and is ready to discuss the architecture of Eurasian security. But for now, the authorities of the European Union countries, as he says, are ignoring the interests of their own citizens and worsening their well-being under the pretext of the Russian threat. According to Shoigu, this may lead to more and more voices being heard from those who seek mutually beneficial cooperation with Russia and peaceful coexistence with this country. But You know, I want to explain Shoigu's quote a little bit here, which only shows that Russians are such a rotten people who even here tried to take credit for someone else's achievements. In his statement, Shoigu combined into 1-2 phrases that, for some reason, are attributed to Suvorov. In the second part of this phrase, the Battle of Thermopylae is mentioned, also known as the Battle of Thermopylae. For those who may have missed it, this was a battle that took place around 480 before Christ during the Greco-Persian War. It is believed that in this battle, the Greeks were significantly outnumbered by the Persians because about 8,000 Greeks fought against 250,000 Persians. At that time, the Greek army was led by the Spartan king Leonidas and the Persian army by King Xerxes. Leonidas was the first to die in this battle. And the Battle of Thermopylae is also famous because of the legend of the 300 Spartans. As you know, it's not clear at all how Russia is involved here, but Shoigu decided to use this as an example that if Europe moves against Russia, even though Europe is not planning to move against Russia at all, then it will be defeated just like at Thermopylae. Well, in general, that's the kind of people who don't know history in Russia. I'll leave it at that. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like the video. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so financially through donations on any platform that's convenient for you or through sponsors. All the links and details are in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I would appreciate your help. That's all for now. Take care of yourself. Goodbye, everyone. Subtitles created by